Hey there, mischief makers and marketing mavens. Buckle up for another irreverent romp through the wild world of advertising. This week on the ADOTAT Show, we've got the maestro of media metrics, Jason Fairchild, CEO and founder of tvScientific. Jason's taking us on a ride through the ups and downs of startup life and the revolution he's leading in TV advertising. Is he on the path to world domination or just trying to find his keys? Tune in and find out.
Deserve to win when it matters most. Facing multi-billion-dollar bet the company litigation? No problem. That's why we're here. Troutman Amin, LLP is a true legal
Strap in,
powerhouse.
folks, because we're about to dial up the wattage with a guest who thinks outside the box so much he's forgotten even where the box is. Meet Jason Fairchild, the brains behind tvScientific, who saw the future of TV advertising, rolled his eyes, and decided he could do one better. If innovation had a love child with audacity, Jason would be its godparent. Buckle up for a not-so-mild ride right here on the ADOTAT Show. So, Jason, first of all, how's the roller coaster going? Seriously, no fluff.
Right now, we're on year 4, but right now it's going incredibly well. That said, every week you deal with ups and downs, and that's just the startup life. But if you just track, the Q1 this year, we're well over our budget, which was in terms of growth and revenue and all that stuff, which was pretty aggressive. So we're feeling good about things. That said, knock on wood, we're prepared for whatever the daily crisis is, which is startup life.
So what's the big game plan now? World domination or just trying to find your keys?
It's you have to begin with the end in mind, I find, in general. So the end for me is just keeping our eyes on the big opportunity before us. Not just our company, but the industry, which is retooling TV to be the most really a marketplace-driven medium, which it's not today. And I think it can be more effective and more valuable than Google over time. I really do, because the ad format is, it's the most powerful screen in our lives, television, and it's just not been used in the same way that leveraged in the same way that Google or Facebook have. And it's got far more potential just from a consumer engagement point of view. So, making sure that we keep our eye on the prize, which is getting millions of businesses buying and measuring TV like they buy and measure search and social. And if we can be a significant part of that movement, then it's going to create good things for businesses, those millions of businesses. It's going to create good things for our shareholders and our team members, and those are all really worthwhile goals.
Okay, let's set the stage. There you are, thinking the world of TV advertising is ripe for a shakeup, like a cocktail that's been stirred but not shaken. What made you jump out of the plane without a parachute and start tvScientific? Was there a gap in the market so big you could drive a truck through it, or did you just fancy a challenge?
So it's more of my career arc. I started in advertising in a company called GoTo.com, which was the pioneer, the original paid search company. It was renamed Overture, and then ultimately we were acquired by Yahoo. But if you look at what that category has done, it's it's hundreds of billions of dollars a year in advertising. It supports millions of advertisers and all of their employees. It's just a really, really positive thing. If I look back on my career, I'm super proud to be a part of it. As I went on to co-found OpenX and did that for a bunch of years, we started researching television, which I had no exposure to prior. As a way to programmatically access ad-supported TV inventory. So I started learning about TV, and I was like, TV is remarkable in that, as we just discussed, the engagement metrics are so incredible, and it's so front and center in all of our lives that it's, obviously a very powerful medium. And yet, the advertising industry around TV in the U.S. is called $70 billion. 85% of that is concentrated to just 500 advertisers. It's probably actually less. So if you compare that to paid search, where there's 9 million advertisers, you see a big difference, right? Clearly, television is not a marketplace-driven, democratized medium. That was honestly the founding thesis is, hey, huge opportunity here, and it's logical. It's clearly the evolution of marketplace-driven mediums, search, then social, e-commerce through Amazon, and TV's coming pretty soon. So the thesis was, hey, what if we do for TV what we did for paid search back in the day, democratize access and introduce performance KPIs that allow digital marketers on search and social to buy and measure TV in the exact same way. So I almost felt like I didn't have a choice as I was thinking about it and talking with advisors, co-founders, one of them, Kent Wakeford, as we're talking about all the things that need to happen. And, I'm triangulating on the opportunity and triangulating on technologies that need to be built. And he finally said, "Hey, you going to talk about this forever? You're going to go do it." I didn't need a big push, but that was a great push by early collaborator and co-founder to start TV Scientific with other co-founders, including David Coy, our chief product officer.
When was the light bulb moment where you knew the company was going to make it? Are you still? Are you have not reached that yet?
It's an interesting question. I always assume we're gonna meet the objective, which is be a big part of the TV industry that flourishes with millions of advertisers instead of just a few hundred. And I think when you're doing something new, attracting credible investors and partners is a big part of the journey. And I think we've been fortunate to attract initially Idealab, and then Northwest Venture Partners and Comcast, and most recently S4, Sir Martin Sorrell's venture arm. So it feels like we've got really good momentum, and I think the goal is achievable. And I never really think about it in terms of we've made it, because you got to earn it every single day, and who the hell knows what happens tomorrow. So there's no resting or relaxing, or honestly, there's no destination. It's really about the intensity of the journey. It's kind of a way of life, I like to say.
So what kind of myths about CT advertising were you battling against? Were people stuck in the Stone Age, or just playing it safe?
Well, it's just an education process. Phase one of CTV is marketers who buy through these 500 marketers that dominate TV advertising could no longer get reach and frequency, which is how they buy on linear or cable TV. So they started buying through their agencies who use Google or Trade Desk or others, reach and frequency buying on CTV. That is not what we do. We can do that, but those are proxy metrics, reach and frequency. What we care about is business outcomes like, a sale, an app download, full return on ad spend. That's how we measure success, or more importantly, how our customers measure success. So the biggest thing about CTV was educating the market that this is actually doable. You can measure ad exposure to outcome deterministically with no panels, and solve through attribution analytics, the last click problem, because you can't click on a TV. The big question is, all right, if I see an ad for Domino's Pizza on my TV and I do a search on Google, who's going to get credit for that? And we can show deterministically that the consumer saw the ad, did the search, clicked on a paid search, and then converted, but all within 38 seconds of seeing, or a minute and a half of seeing the Domino's Pizza ad. And therefore, the TV ad created the intent that Google harvested, which is a long-standing frustration for most marketers, is they feel like Google gets the benefit of harvesting intent that they create through other mediums. And we're really good at demonstrating that for marketers.
How did your past life in tech and advertising, was it smooth sailing or more of a roller coaster?
Well, I'm not early in my career. Oh, and I've the last company I worked at, I co-founded with a CEO, Tim Cadogan, and later, as we got to more mature stage, we brought in a president, John Gentry, and I effectively had a 12-year sort of apprenticeship on being a CEO. Got to see all the things that, whether it's fundraising or personnel issues or you name it, all the things that were done right, a bunch of things that probably could have been done differently. I think it'd be really hard in my mind to do this job if I didn't have sort of sitting in the shotgun seat experience for a bunch of years, and even going all the way back to GoTo. At Idealab, I literally sat next to the CEO and got to hear him pitch raising money for, I don't know, it was 50 pitches a week, which is just a great learning experience. And I think having a bunch of experience and to develop pattern recognition really is the only thing that can prepare you for a job like this. And I also think it's why 20-somethings and 30-somethings have a hard time building these companies and building the right culture, because they just haven't had the time in the saddle to experience different things and get some pattern recognition. I think time in the saddle matters a bunch.
Is there anybody that was your Yoda that taught you how to do this?
No, certainly there's a bunch of influential folks, but I would call it more of a personal board of directors. If something comes up, could be a fundraising thing, could be a technical thing, it could be HR, hiring thing or recruiting thing. I'll have a team or a group of 3 to 5 folks that I'll rely on, and that may shift over time who's in that group. But I'll like to run it by and these folks and just calibrate based on their feedback, and just going through that process of communicating the issue also helps you get to resolution easier. I think that's been instrumental for me, and to this day I would say I have a personal board of directors with really experienced folks with good human judgment, good business judgment.
If you could turn back, or would you plot a safer course?
I try not to look back and say what if. I don't think I'd change anything, honestly. Happy with being involved in tech startups. It's a great way of life. It's a great way to wake up every day inspired about the day. And if I'd done things differently early in life, like I didn't finish a college degree, and if I had done that, I might be somewhere else. And I used to care about that. I don't anymore. So I wouldn't change anything, I don't think.
As the tide of privacy concern rises, how is TV Scientific keeping its head above water without popping the inflatable raft?
For TV, I just think it's a bit different because the value exchange between you're going to get free content in return for seeing advertisement, and those advertisements are going to be targeted. That's a pretty clear value exchange.
Right.
And I think anyone who watches ad-supported TV understands it, and also if it's on a connected TV app, agrees to it. So the consent is there, the clear understanding of the value exchange is there, and I just think therefore it's different in television than it might be in other mediums where it's less clear.
What could the rest of the industry learn from this?
Well, I think if you look at GDPR, they're trying to strive towards a consent framework. Version 1 of that probably did an okay job in that they got the consent. I think version 2 of it needs to be a little easier for the consumer. So if I want to sign up for a bunch of websites, I can do so without having to, every time I go to a website, click a button that says yes, because then you're desensitized to it, and you're not really understanding the value exchange. But there's more qualified folks than I that are dealing with those issues on the non-TV channels. But really, it comes down to informed consent in my mind.
If you could look into your crystal ball, what's the forecast for the hurricane or sunshine coming for ad-supported streaming channels? Is it rainbows and unicorns, or a bit of thunder and lightning?
Probably a mix. I think what we're seeing, obviously the shift towards ad-supported streaming from linear cable. The inventory is already outstripping the transition of demand coming over to CTV. So
right.
Consequently, you're seeing a lot of inventory unsold. It's not talked about that much, but that's just the facts. And it's going to get more pronounced as Amazon comes in and potentially floods the market with ad-supported inventory. So for the short term, there's probably going to be an imbalance weighted towards supply. The long term, and I'm not sure if this is probably 3 years, 2.5, 3 years and beyond, as we get hundreds of thousands of marketers that spend millions per year on Facebook and Google, if they come in and participate in TV like I think they will, and I do think that's inevitable, it's going to radically change. You'll have a marketplace-driven pricing mechanism for inventory with a base of, hopefully millions of advertisers versus just a few hundred. And when that happens, I think it's going to be a really positive boom for ad-supported TV programmers. The question is, how long will that take? My guess is 3 years.
So do you really think that TV is about to get off the bench, ready to shoot 3-pointers in the big leagues of performance advertising?
I do. I mean, when you see the data for campaigns and you see ad exposure that creates intent that leads to a search and or purchase, it's actually more powerful than search in that, A, it performs on par with search, and B, it actually creates intent where search can't do that. Harvests intent. And then if you compare it to social, I mean, that the screen is cluttered with other content that's literally designed to distract and capture attention. Versus TV, there's no clutter at all. You've got 100% viewable, 100% completion. It's just a powerful, powerful medium. And I think it's been powerful all along. It's just we've not been able to measure it now, and now we can. So I think it's gonna invent the 4-point shot. It's not gonna stop at the 3-point shot.
Is the old guard quaking in their loafers or lacing up their sneakers?
I think right now the old guard is probably going through a bit of shock and awe about just the speed with which all this disruption and transition is happening. There's probably some short-term overreaction, certainly. But again, my view is that the long view, it's not even that long, a couple of years out, if they can work on capturing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of advertisers that spend a ton of money at Facebook or on Google, and embrace that with partnerships like NBCU has partnered with us to go after performance marketers, and I think that's a great model to accelerate the adoption of performance advertisers into TV. And there will be a tipping point when there's now all of a sudden more demand than there is supply, and CPMs are going to go way up and find their natural price, value-driven rate, which could be $100 CPMs in 5 years. I don't know. We'll find out. What I do know is sometimes if we pay $40 for a CPM for a given program, it can perform from a ROAS point of view for the advertiser better than a $12 CPM ad. So it's all about finding that inflection point where for an advertiser or a class of advertisers, the CPM is going to balance out with performance. Just like it went through the same process in paid search, same process in social. In paid search, there's vertical marketplace keywords that sell for $50 a click and more because that's actually produces a positive ROI for those advertisers. Same thing will happen in television for sure.
Right. What's funneling the TV's leap into performance metrics? Is it a technological revolution, consumer demand, or is it a bit of column A and B?
Well, in general, ad dollars are going to follow audiences. Now 50% of all TV consumption happens through streaming services. So ad dollars are going to move there. And those are kind of the traditional 500 advertisers that dominate legacy TV. The new advertisers, the performance advertisers, are going to come to TV because for the first time ever, you can now measure ROAS on TV ads like you can in search and social. And, the process for them can be a little slow. Some are fast, but it's okay. Let's test. And then you've got to trust. Trust meaning you've got to trust the KPIs that you're seeing, which requires a level of transparency into like log level data, that follows a consumer journey from TV ad exposure to outcome. And then you're going to demonstrate that you can hit your ROAS targets, and then you're going to scale. It's those 4 steps, and you need to be able to scale to make it meaningful for that advertiser. And of course, connected TVs are in 111 million households. Last data point I read. So there's tons of scale out there, and it's only getting bigger with more ad supported moving into that side of the column.
Speaking of KPIs and the sea of metrics, what KPIs do you crown the most crucial for measuring victory? Are we talking about gold coins, or the real treasure, or something less tangible?
I mean, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the advertisers think. So they're going to define success, and it could be, cost per phone call. It could be cost per website visitor, cost per sale, cost per, if I'm an auto dealer, I either want someone filling out a lead form online or I want someone walking into my dealership. So being able to adapt to any of those advertiser declared outcomes, what they care about, is vitally important for any platform in this space. Of course, we do all that, and it's not about what I think, and it's certainly not about reach and frequency. It's about, how much does it cost to get someone to walk into my dealership or buy a pizza or whatever it is.
Have you ever had to educate them on what some possible KPIs are? Or you felt they had maybe KPIs that were just useless?
It's hard to have the conversation with an advertiser that the KPIs that they care about are useless.
Right.
I would argue that reach and frequency is not useless, but it's a proxy metric. You can't take that to the bank. Imagine I'm a CMO at Delta Airlines and I go to my board of directors and I say, I'm going to spend $100 million on advertising, and here's my reach and frequency against if I'm a board member, I'm like, okay, tell me how that moves the needle on sales, because that's what our stock price is valued on, or frequent flyer miles, subscribers, or whatever it is that actually moves the needle for Delta Airlines. And I don't think reach and frequency is one of those KPIs. Trying to educate marketers that there's a whole new set of performance KPIs that are outcome based, but that are possible now that have never been possible before. That's going to be a 2-3 year, 4-year process to kind of educate the big legacy marketers around performance. But 2/3 of marketing in the US, and it's a $300+ billion advertising market, 2/3 of it is anchored in some sort of performance KPI, some outcome KPI. So that's a huge addressable market that we can go after and move to TV for the first time. So we're not dependent on reprogramming or retraining reach and frequency advertisers. That'd be nice, and we'd love Delta Airlines to come over to be, on a cost per ticket sold basis. But we have, millions of advertisers to move over to TV that actually care about the outcomes that we measure.
So marketplaces have thrown down the gauntlet, offering a duel where David can stand toe-to-toe with Goliath. How have you seen this empowerment change the fate of smaller contenders? Is it a fairy tale come true or just a new battlefield?
Can you say the question again? We had an internet disruption there.
Marketplaces have thrown down the gauntlet, offering a duel where David can stand toe-to-toe with Goliath. How have you seen this empowerment change the fate of smaller contenders? Is it a fairy tale come true or just another battlefield?
I guess you'd have to define the smaller contenders. If you're talking about smaller advertisers, the ability to go and advertise on television in 10 minutes with $100 or $500 and measure your phone calls or your website visitors or whatever you measure, that's pretty revolutionary. That's a little guy that couldn't afford it before, that may operate a pizza store, or it could be it could be a car dealer that does 100 million in sales a year. But for them to be able to easily buy and measure TV advertising is a big deal. It's not now just for the big cable companies or the big ad sales teams that need $100,000 to activate a campaign. So I think democratization of a medium is really a powerful thing. And again, we've seen this before in paid search and social.
Is it democracy or just more of a crowded monarchy?
Well, I think you could argue in the case of walled gardens, Google or Facebook, it's a crowded. Because it's a black box often, and you don't get to see much. You certainly have limited control. And if you want to, it's the old Disneyland analogy. If you're going to go to Disneyland, you're gonna pay $7 for a soda, and you're gonna like live by their rules. And the same thing at Google and Facebook. So the great thing about TV is that at least so far, there is no walled garden around it. It's much more of an open ecosystem, which is really refreshing.
Can you tell us some tales of triumph where the marketplace strategy has turned the tides, bring in the spoils of war in the form of ROI and visibility for brands once lost at sea?
Well, I've lived through a couple of them. Paid search, of course, did that. I was in the early days of paid search, and we had an office in Idea Lab in Pasadena, and we'd walk to a bagel shop every day. And this is in 1998. We just launched our paid search product. And the bagel shop guy got to know us and asked what we did, and we told him about our company. And within a few months, he had built a website, an e-commerce website, selling not bagels but bagel accessories. And within a year,
what's a bagel accessory? Is it like a thing that you put your bagel?
Knives, that kind of stuff.
It's not like a finger for holding your bagel.
And he. This is, it's company lore, but it actually happened. We watched it happen. Within a year, the bagel shop itself was closed. He became an very successful online merchant, and that changed, that person's whole trajectory. And I think that times millions of businesses is a pretty inspiring story. So it happened in paid search. Those same advertisers went to social, graduated, and different ad formats. You have to do a little bit of video, and the measurement's different a little bit, so they had to learn it. But social obviously has taken off. E-commerce now, same thing. It's an open marketplace. I tomorrow could go open a store on Amazon and hustle up some products to sell and give it a go. So those are all fairly democratized mediums, and TV is notably not until just recently. I think it will happen here, just like it's happened in those other categories. It's not like TV has to educate we have to educate the power of TV. I think everyone knows that it's powerful emotionally. Now we have the data to support it actually performs well too.
So as more adventurers seek fortune in the marketplace, what dragons do you foresee on the horizon threatening the kingdom's quality and integrity? Is it a beast prowling the borders?
I think the worst thing that could happen to television is concentration of power, because we've seen that negative impacts in other mediums. If 80% of TV viewing households all of a sudden subscribe to YouTube, that'd probably be a really bad outcome. Or pick another alternative. So I think maintaining an open marketplace is vitally important. And structurally, I think it also makes sense because, app owners, Discovery Channel, pick Weather Channel, they ultimately own their own media. And if they want to go on, Netflix, if they want to go on Amazon, for example, they're going to have to give Amazon a percentage of the ad inventory. They call it 30%. They still get to keep 70%. So they can go and sell it to folks like us who sell it to make it available to hundreds of thousands of advertisers. Hopefully that dynamic, that structural dynamic will maintain and persist versus everything becoming a walled garden. And we've seen that kind of movie play out.
Speaking of measurable outcomes, how does TV Scientific navigate the tightrope between short-term gains and brand legacy?
Is that an advertiser-focused question? I'll assume it is. Legacy television, there's 500 advertisers that are responsible for 85% of the $70 billion TV market. That's not who we're going after, at least not now. So
right.
They're more interested in brand lift studies, reach and frequency, awareness marketing. We're going after, I think you use the word transactional, but it's really performance-oriented. Folks who care about the action of delivering a TV ad and the reaction of a consumer in the form of taking some action to purchase, to fill out a form, whatever it is.
So in the grand race, is TV Scientific the hare, the tortoise, or the wise old owl?
Definitely not the wise old owl. We haven't been around long enough, and I don't want to say we're going to be the tortoise. So definitely the hare. We do move fast, and it's probably one of our bigger challenges is saying no to stuff and just keeping the focus on delivering really.
So I'm talking. Where did it all begin with you?
My first. I think like everyone else, when the internet was just sort of exploding, it really wasn't the internet. It was CompuServe and AOL, and so I got a CompuServe account. I think I was in Michigan. I might have been in Southern California at the time. And I knew that I had to. I've always wanted to be a part of technology, so I knew this. I think like many people knew this was it. Just didn't know how to get involved. My buddy and I created a concept for a business. It was a corporate sponsored treasure hunt where you'd have to go to a website to, and go through this whole thing. And that was the idea. We came up with a business plan. We started pitching to folks. And one of the good friends of my buddy was Sky Dayton, the CEO of Earthlink. And they were just starting. He's 19 years old. There's 10 employees. And we pitched him, or my buddy pitched him, and he said, "Hey, I can't do this, but why don't you come run marketing?" Because that was his gig, and he did, and he shortly thereafter brought me over, and now I'm in the internet business, and it was just an amazing time. It was right at the birth of Netscape, and the industry was just exploding, and everyone was learning at an incredibly accelerated rate. For me, the origin story, at least in terms of getting into the internet, was really spawned from, hey, we need to do this. Don't really know how to do it, so we're going to invent a way to do it, and then start jumping in and figuring stuff out. And one relationship led to another, and here we are 25 years later, or 30 years later.
Taken down in your business life?
Yeah, probably my own anxiety. Just doing startups can be incredibly stressful, and if you have an aversion to lack of stability in your life, and I've stopped, early in life I had some lack of stability, and it's always been difficult for me. And I've crashed and burned in startups before, where I just couldn't handle the lack of stability and anxiety. So that's been something to, if you're going to be in startup life, you got to handle that. So I think over the course of several experiences, I've gotten to the point where I don't react like I used to, and know that everything is going to be okay. Just keep your head down and everything's going to be fine.
Any hobbies? Are we talking professional Netflix athlete?
I love to hike. I write, I occasionally write books, just a bunch of stuff that I that I do on the side. I think it's important to like not always work because it's sort of the saw gets dull if you don't kind of have a diverse environment to put it to use in. Like, so if all you're doing is thinking about work 24/7, you're going to become less effective, in my humble opinion, over time.
So what kind of books do you write? And please say it's mysteries.
No, of course it's science fiction. I've done a time travel book. It's been a few years, but it took me 5 years to write it while I was on planes. But enjoy that. I've got a couple more kind of cooking in the early stages, but not a lot of time.
Any books that totally upended your worldview?
I love history books. I just finished last night a great one on Winston Churchill, really about the beginning of the war through America's entry into the war in the darkest, most difficult days. He's an amazing man. One of the other ones that's more technology oriented is called Becoming Steve Jobs, and it's unlike Isaacson's book, which is more Jobs worship, in my view. It focuses on Steve Jobs' flaws and the many decade arc of how he became just from a really bad manager to a world-class manager, obviously delivering great value. And that's a really fun book because it's about we all go through this, we all evolve, we're all human, we're gonna fail, and then how do you react is kind of the question. And I think studying that is really fun.
So you travel a lot. What's your favorite state? And you can't say denial.
Well, I live in California. Hard to beat California, honestly.
Right. The weather,
the mountains are amazing. The weather, but really the mountains, the outdoor, whether that's the beach or love hiking in the Sierras. Tough to beat. And I grew up mostly in Connecticut, so I do enjoy that part of the world as well, but don't spend a lot of time there.
What about favorite countries? And you can't say airports worldwide.
We spend time in Costa Rica, and we have for the last 25 years as a family. So that's high on the list. And then my wife and I love to go to France when we can. There's an annual conference there in Cannes, and I try to bring her, and we do some travel around that.
So you're a Côte d'Azur type person.
I am not I'm a wannabe foodie. I just love the experience of honestly just walking, doing the cafe things, museum. I mean, it's all, you don't have to be a snob to enjoy that stuff. I just
do you do the new beaches or not?
I do not.
Yeah, me neither.
Frankly, I didn't even know that was a thing. Once upon a time, I went on a river cruise in Germany, and it was definitely a thing. Like, there's like
the saunas. Oh yeah, my first time in Berlin in the hotel, I went into the sauna, and there's this woman just completely naked in the sauna, and I look, and I'm like, "Am I in the right place?" But yeah, Nice. I was like 12 years old, walking down Nice. I was like, "Why is everyone naked?"
Oh, yeah, we certainly took a left-hand turn there, didn't we? But yeah.
Fast forward a few decades, who do you want to be when you finally grow up?
I don't want to grow up.
Right? No?
No, I mean, the way I explain it to my wife or to anyone, because they're like, why do you keep doing these startups? And it's a way of life. It's not a journey. It's not a destination per se. It's like, you got to like getting up with some of that lack of stability, uncertainty, and build. And it creates, I think it brings out the best in us. And I want to keep building for as long as I possibly can. And if you look at, one of the role models, and is a co-founder at tvScientific, is Bill Gross, who was a founder of Idea Lab, and he's done hundreds of companies. And he's probably 5-7 years older than me. I don't actually know his age, but he's still doing 2-3 startups a year. And he's got that same passion for innovation building and so forth. And knowing that's possible, increases or raises the level of expectations on yourself, for me anyway. I don't want to go retire and play golf, if I ever could. I don't mind golf. I like it, but I wouldn't want to do it every day. I want to build because it brings out the best in all of us, I think.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert, or is it more like introvert but willing to perform for snacks?
I am some weird hybrid. In my life, I've had a phobia over public speaking, and yet I come up through sales. How do you make that up, right? So, I got through that with a lot of, it took a couple of years and ultimately beta blockers, but got through that. And my wife would say I'm somewhere in the middle. It just depends.
What gets you out of the bed in the morning and you can't say alarm clock?
Loving, liking what you're doing every day is kind of the only thing for me, is like get up and be inspired, engaged in what I'm doing, which is often building companies in one way or another. That for me is kind of the answer.
So before we go, I'd like to ask people if you could send yourself a time traveling text message.
I'd probably just not send the message because
Good.
all of the anxiety, all of the stuff that I look back on and say, well, and it was really difficult at the time. It actually helped make me who I am today, and it fueled the journey. This incredible sense of urgency around whatever it was is in many ways fear driven, at least for me. Fear of failure, fear of lack of stability, whatever it is. And if I got a text message saying everything's going to be okay, I don't know that would have been productive. I think I needed that anxiety, fear, whatever it was, to just as fuel and motivation to drive forward with a sense of absolute urgency. Fear's a great motivator.
All right, folks, that's a wrap on this electrifying episode of the ADOTAT Show. Big shout out to Jason Fairchild for dropping wisdom bombs and navigating the madness of TV advertising with us. And a massive thank you to our sponsors, Troutman Amin LLP, the law firm that makes sure we stay out of trouble while we stir it up. Remember, without them, we'd be navigating the legal labyrinth with a blindfold. Stay tuned for more shenanigans next time. Until then, stay curious, stay bold, and know more than you did yesterday.